Hi there, everybody. This is Mark Plunkett, the pastor of Heritage Presbyterian Church, and this is another of our weekly devotionals. I just got back from a family reunion about 100 miles west of Austin, and we had about 50 members of part of my mother's family, and boy, we had a great time. We had great food, and we took lots of pictures, and we had lots of fun, and we sat around, we told stories, we even had worship together. It was just a wonderful time, and we do it every few years, and we're already planning the next one. But let me tell you a story that I shared with them that I think some of them had a hard time believing. But I heard it from my grandfather, and this story is about his grandfather. Now, my grandfather's grandfather, so my great-great-grandfather, his name was Reverend Ebenezer Dickey Junkin. Ebenezer Dickey Junkin. And his picture is the one you saw at the start of this devotional. Now, Ebenezer Dickey Junkin was the pastor of the First Presbyterian Church in Houston back in the 1880s. And when he was there, downtown Houston was not nearly as nice or, let's say, genteel as it is now. And every time I drive past a First Presbyterian Church downtown, I look at how nice the street is and how beautiful the yards are, how big the church is. Didn't used to be that way, folks. Used to be a little bit smaller, and it used to be on a street where, let's just say, a lot of stuff went on that you shouldn't be doing, especially after dark. Well, sometimes on Sunday morning, early Sunday morning, Ebenezer would be up and he'd be getting ready to go to church, and a woman from his church would knock on the door, and Granddaddy told me that they were usually crying because their husbands had not come home the night before. And so they would cry and they would beg Dr. Ebenezer to go and get their husbands, and the wives would tell them where she thought they were, but Ebenezer knew where they were. So he would go down to the street that had all these bars and saloons and other places, and he would find these guys. He would just go in there, and he'd find these guys. He'd grab them by the scruff of the neck, and he'd drag them out, whether they wanted to go or not. And he'd put them in his buggy. They didn't have cars back then. They had horse-drawn buggies, and he would make them go to church with him. And he'd sit them there in the pews, drag them down the aisle, put them in a pew, make sure their family sat with them. So you had this poor devil who'd been out all night, probably drunk, probably hungover, probably really hurting, and now everybody knows what he's been doing. And Dr. Ebenezer Dickey Junkin apparently had a reputation for doing this, which means he didn't do it once or twice. He did it a few times. Now, here was my question. When I told this story to my family, here's my question. Do you think Reverend Dr. Ebenezer Dickey Junkin was ever afraid when he did that? I think the answer is yes. I think he had to be at least a little bit on edge, a little bit uptight. But once he started going in there, nobody stopped him. The bar owners didn't stop him. The other guys that might have still been there, they didn't stop him. Nobody stopped him. Now, the cops didn't exactly go in and get him either, but the cops also didn't get in his way. And when he grabbed these guys and he'd haul them out to the wagon, he'd put them in there and drive them to church, nobody stopped him. Now, I don't know what the elders of the church might have had to say about all this, but he was the pastor there for 11 years, from the 1800s to the 1880s, to the 1890s. And it was 1891 when he died, and of course that's when his pastorate ended. Now, other than serving his church and trying to buck these men up and get them out of trouble and get them out of this terrible place and maybe shame them into behaving, where did Ebenezer Dickey get this idea? Where did this come from? Well, there's a reading in Paul's letter to Ephesians. Listen to what it says. Be careful then how you live, not as unwise people, but as wise, making the most of the time, because the days are evil. So do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. Okay, that's pretty direct. Listen to this part. Do not get drunk with wine, for that is debauchery, but be filled with the Spirit. And then he talks about all the things that are wonderful when you get filled with the Spirit. So I wonder if Dr. Junkin used that whole, don't get drunk on wine or don't get drunk on anything else. It's foolish. It's debauchery. I wonder if he used that as his justification for going in to get these guys, besides helping the women out that were crying outside because their husbands were gone, helping perhaps the children out in that family, maybe keep Pop from going down to those places and spending a bunch of money they didn't have, or embarrassing their family. Or maybe he was sending a message to his church and to his community. Don't go there, I'm just liable to come and get you. Did he get it from Ephesians? I don't know. But man, my great-great-grandfather was something. He was a righteous, tough, fire and brimstone preacher, is what my grandfather told me, and a servant of God. And he did not tolerate that kind of work. Wonder if we got any ministers like that out there today. I have a feeling we do. Wonder if I would have the courage to do that. I don't know. Let's just